Hey everyone, Joshua Kirk here with you once again, and now it's time for episode 266 of Album of the Day, in which for today's album review, I'm going to be reviewing the new album from a Florida rapper who's had a very prolific as well as a pretty successful last couple of years as he's been coming out with some of his breakout releases. Of course, and of course, he is a real, he is definitely a real rap game. He is definitely a real rap game talent right now. And of course, I'm talking about the rapper known as Denzel Curry, who recently teamed up with the very prolific hip-hop producer Kenny Beats to create this album, which I consider to be Denzel's fifth studio album, released on February 7th, 2020, and the album is called Unlocked. And Unlocked is kind of a mini album or an EP, as well as kind of a multimedia project, as it does have a music video to go with it on YouTube that basically depicts Denzel and Kenny finding themselves locked inside of a computer and trying to find some lost files in there, and they find themselves in all these crazy kind of animated worlds in the video. So it's a pretty fun little clip to watch if you want to have the full Unlocked experience. Anyway, all that aside, I'm not going to necessarily talk about the Unlocked video in this review. I'm mostly just going to talk about the music on it, the entire 18 minutes of material that Denzel and Kenny have put together here. But first, I'm going to sort of talk about kind of my relationship with Denzel's music in the past. So I'd say I've been a fan of a lot of what I've heard from him. Of course, I did a review last year of his highly acclaimed 2018 album Taboo, which in my opinion, and probably most people's opinion, I think, Taboo is Denzel Curry's best album. I feel like he really met his full potential in that project with his flow, his bars. He had some great producers on that record, and even though it was kind of divided into three parts, it still felt very cohesive and very well fleshed out. He followed that up in 2019 with the kind of surprise release Zoo. Zoo, which was a record I admit I kind of underrated a little when I first heard it. I mean, when I first heard it, I actually wasn't quite that impressed. I know it's not a very popular take, but initially I just thought Denzel was just kind of playing it safe and kind of just going for something more streamlined. And to a degree, he kind of is, but actually the record turned out to really grow on me as, it does have some bangers on it. I mean, Ricky, Birds, Speedboat, Shake 88 are all slaps on that record. I will say, however, I still don't really love it as much as most people do. I mean, I don't really care for the skits that much. I thought they were a little corny and annoying, and also and also Taboo I still think is a much stronger record overall. So going into Unlocked, I was just hoping for something that was a little more closer to the greatness that I saw from the Taboo record. And I will say, upon hearing Unlocked, I pretty much got an amazing record. It's a very short record. I will say it could actually, in my opinion, be stretched a little longer. It kind of feels a little bit, criminally short, but I will say I do also at the same time really appreciate how brief this album is, because it really allows Denzel to just be so laser focused with his delivery on this record. And Kenny's beats on the whole thing are just absolutely fire. And also, this is likely one of the weirdest and most experimental things I think Denzel has been involved in, Taboo included. I mean, all the way down to those kind of MF Doom inspired interludes, which we do have one of those opening the album with the song Track 1 that features this spoken word sample of what sounds like somebody talking about a person who and kind of his mental state, which in a way actually could kind of apply that to the sort of attitude that Denzel is sort of showing on this record, and how lately in his music he's really been sort of, living in his emotions. I mean, if you look at songs from Taboo, like Clout Cobain, he actually kind of embraces emo rap, I think, in a really interesting way on projects like that. But then this weird kind of intro transitions into the first actual song of the record, Take It Back, and right out of the gate features some fantastic opening bars, like Frederick Douglass, "It's time to pick your brain apart, looking at the menu, mother effer, I'm the main with art." And the flow that he delivers and just kind of the overall aggression that he brings is just awesome over the kind of hypnotic, psychedelic beat from Kenny. And then the song makes this really insane beat switch into something much darker and more eerie, and as well as some pitch-shifted rapping from Denzel, which there is a lot of that kind of pitch-shifted, sort of weird vocal effects happening throughout Unlocked. So that's definitely kind of showing a really kind of more experimental side that some that we're kind of not really used to seeing from Denzel. And also, I will say, another line from the first half of the song that I love is that line of, "I don't got candy, but I'll turn your head to gushers." And then the song ends with a really creative sample choice. It sounds like a sample from an old country tune or something like that. The next track, Lay Up, once again goes for this kind of woozy, psychedelic kind of thing. And also opens with some really weird-ass vocal samples. Another track where I think Denzel's flow and Kenny's beat, I think, complement each other very well. Then the really brief track, Pyro. Pyro also delivers some pretty memorable lines, like the line of, "I got them bags full of goodies, like I'm CeeLo Green." As he's sort of talking about his role kind of in the rap game as of right now. And also paired over this instrumental that sounds very kind of woozy and definitely sounds, it definitely has that kind of druggy sort of synth or organ sound I'm hearing on there. It sounds kind of like some warped gospel almost on this track. And definitely one of the highlights on there, even though I'm not crazy for some of the vocal samples toward the end of the track. I think they're a little bit annoying with kind of the amount of distortion that's on there is a little off-putting. Then after that, we go into my favorite track on the record, Diet, which does feature some pretty memorable bars, some of which I didn't see coming. I mean, there's even a line where Denzel goes as far to say that he doesn't like Pixar, which when I first heard that line, I was just like, what? Even though I'm pretty sure it's probably just a joke, but yeah, you know what I'm saying. But and also this is probably my favorite instrumental on here, and I even got to watch one of Kenny's live streams that he did a little while ago, where he broke down the beats of like some of the songs he's produced, and he broke down this song Diet, and it only makes me appreciate this beat that much more, and kind of the layers he's worked in there, like the kind of jungle percussion, the flexatone effect, the chant samples that he like put a pitch on to make it sound very melodic and kind of eerie. kind of eerie. Some really killer bass synth on the track that just sounds very gruff. And I will say, it's just like it's likely one of my favorite beats Kenny has ever produced because it's just so damn creative. Uh, Creative also has likely the best hook on the record. Uh, and also I love the kind of weird, warped vocals throughout the song. I mean, including that one point where Denzel actually raps with some kind of live pitch shifting on his voice. I mean, he even does that whole thing on his color show performance of the song, which I think is pretty dope. The next track, So Incredible, I think is another highlight for me. I will say that, and I will mention a line from the song that I do really like. Well, now let me take you to the judge and throw the book out. Let's do it on the Barbie like the mother effing cookout. And also lines like, bars harder than the morning wood are also pretty hilarious too. Also, I do really like the beat on here. I love the kind of skippy percussion rhythms. I think the flow syncopates with it very well. And it's got all kinds of samples, including what sounds like a piano sample with like extra reverb and some reverb on it. I think sounds really cool on there. I'm even hearing some like Red Hot Chili Peppers inspired slap bass on the track too. Really kind of interesting. And again, this is definitely unlike anything. These are some of the most creative beats I've heard Denzel rapping on over top of. The next track, track 7, is yet another kind of instrumental interlude, and this is probably my least favorite cut on here, even though I do love some of the ideas, including the sample. I love how Kenny sort of takes samples of previous lines said from So Incredible, as well as a really cool kind of bass break in the middle too. It's just that the track as a whole, other than those two really cool ideas, is kind of bland, and also just not a fan of that, of the way the track cuts into these, what sounds like two people just kind of talking, and talking to each other. It's yet another, it's just yet another one of those kind of corny skits that I think kind of, prevented me from really fully loving Zoo, even though majority of the record is pretty fire. However, I think the album does close on a high note with the track Cosmic. It's definitely very satisfying, a very kind of fiery way to open the record. And I also love the sort of attitude and the attitude that Denzel brings to this track, really sounding just so kind of volatile on this track. As he is spitting out in incredible bars over this very trippy beat from Kenny. And then the song just kind of bleeds into this really gorgeous kind of melancholy outro with soulful strings and funeral pianos, and then this voice sample of somebody saying, we tried all we can to exterminate them, but no apparent luck. It's the kind of thing that sort of subverts expectations. I love this record. I definitely will say that it's a little sad this record seems to be getting slightly more lukewarm reception than its predecessors, but hey, everyone has their own opinion. I just really like this album because it's just, it's definitely one of Denzel's most focused and cohesive projects to date. It features some of my favorite beats I think Kenny Beats has ever produced in his entire career, which is saying a lot because I definitely do enjoy some of the other beats he's produced for other rappers like rappers like Vince Staples and O3 Greedo and Megan Thee Stallion and people like that. Like that. Like that. Like I said earlier in the video, it is definitely a little short. I wish it was maybe a little bit longer. If it were maybe 25 minutes, I'd probably be a little more satisfied with it. But but at the same time, I think the brevity really works because it really allows Denzel and Kenny to only show their strengths and not try to do some like super like tedious and long kind of streamable album. So yeah, like 8 out of 10 on this one is what I'm feeling for this new Denzel Curry and Kenny Beats mini album / multimedia project Unlocked. And I'll see you for episode 267.